make you so special? Why did he bless you? Think about it. I woke up this morning. Got a smile when I say that shit. I woke up this morning. Go.
Here's the crystal healing bed that we're going to talk about in this podcast. Little kitty cat. This is very interesting. All right, cool. So we are live. We are live with Shirley Sheldon. And just a little intro. This is Trud, as I call him in the podcast. He's been in a few episodes now. He's my roommate down in college. This is his mother, so hello. So I thought a really good intro question for you would be, Who is John of God? Or to you, or just as objectively as you can explain that for him.
Well, right here on the mantle, I have a picture of John of God. And John of God is Brazilian. He is a world-renowned spiritual medium. He has been doing his mission for over 50 years in Brazil. And basically, I would say ever since Oprah went down there 4 or 5 years ago, the Casa, which means house, where he does his spiritual work, has just exploded in terms of people now come from all over the world, for healing. So John of God is just a very simple man. He, I think, has like maybe a second grade education, but in his younger years, Saint Rita, who some people may know in the Catholic tradition, the Saint of Impossibilities, basically appeared to him and, told him that he had a mission and that God was going to use him, and God has used him.
How old was he?
I think he was in his teens. I'm not exactly
That's
sure.
a lot of responsibility for a teenager.
Yeah, and bless his heart, as a kid, he was very poor, and they often went hungry, and so as an adult in his adult life, he does a lot of service in terms of feeding the hungry, just helping people in lots of different ways. But
you said he's performed a lot of miracles, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, as a medium, what happens is John of God just pretty much just checks out, like loses consciousness, goes to sleep. And these very highly evolved spiritual beings, some of them that the general public might be familiar with, that were known as saints in their day, like Saint Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits, Saint Francis of Assisi. Very highly evolved beings will actually work through him to do miracles. And this has been going on for years and years and years. He basically says, it is not I, but God who heals. And he also says that he will continue to do this mission for as long as God wants him to, as long as he's alive. And of course he's been doing it for over 50 years.
Wow.
And people come, in recent years, thousands, from all over the world. The word's out. And their healings, often on the physical level. I believe always on the spiritual level. In the mental and emotional, and I've seen healings of
firsthand.
Yes, firsthand.
Wow.
My first trip down there, the lady next to me had liver cancer with a very, very maybe 6 weeks left to live, and I'll tell the story.
Totally.
Healing happens in lots of different ways. Sometimes people are invited to sit in a room, it's called a current room, and meditate. Sometimes they're always encouraged to drink water that John of God has blessed when he's incorporated as an entity, which translates spiritual being in English. Sometimes they go in front of John of God and when he's incorporated, and the person's asked to have a spiritual intervention where they're worked on. I've had many of those over the years. Sometimes they're asked to go to the sacred waterfall, which is there at the Casa. It's a little bit of a walk, and stand under the water. This lady with the cancer, she actually went to the waterfall and had to go to the restroom. And so going to the restroom and didn't realize that she got in a nest of fire ants, which can be lethal. And they got her. And the people that were with her were like, oh my goodness. The first thing they thought was get her under the water, and she was just on fire, and they got her to the water, and she stood under the waterfall. And the next day after this experience, she goes in front of John of God, waited her turn behind the hundreds, the thousands that stand in line to go in front of him. And when she got in front of him, of course, one of the spiritual beings was working through him and looked at her, and before she had a chance to say anything, he basically said, "We sent the ants." And as I understand, fire ants, in some traditions, the correlation between nature and animals, and they can be healing, can remove toxins,
Right.
And so that was part of the whole experience for her, and she did go home and was healed, of a condition that when she got down there she did not think she would recover from.
Wow.
Liver cancer is pretty serious stuff, So, another lady, this was my third trip down, was wheeling her husband in front of the Blessed Entity, as John of God's called when he's incorporating. And he had some type of paralysis or Parkinson's, I don't recall exactly what. And she wheeled him in front of the Blessed Entity and said, I brought my husband. And he goes, oh, yes, we know. We're already working on him. Because there's so many spiritual beings that work through John of God. And he goes, but we need to work on that brain tumor in your head. May we work? And she had no idea.
No clue.
She's like, I have a brain tumor. And he's like, yes, and we must get it out. She's like, okay, well, I happen to be there.
Watching this whole interaction.
I did not see that interaction.
Okay.
I heard about that after the fact. But I was like on the third row. So at the Casa, which is named after St. Ignatius, who was the founder of the Jesuit order, a great saint. And that is kind of underneath Jesus is kind of the overlying saint manages the Casa. So the main room that you walk into, that kind of a meeting hall, is where often John of God, when he's incorporated, will come out on the stage and sometimes do actual physical surgeries. And these surgeries often exist outside of the paradigm of the reality that most of us live in, but I've witnessed them firsthand. For years, it's now 2018, I've been going there since 2005.
How many times have you been since 2005?
9. I've been there 9 times.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's my calling, my mission. It's connected with John of God's mission to support him and and to just be connected with the work that's going on there. But so often he'll come out on the stage and he'll do surgeries. And one of the surgeries is a little kitchen knife that goes right up through the nose into the brain.
Oh, wow.
And another surgery is that same knife, scraping the eye. There's no anesthesia, and I know because I've been right there. And it's been done for 50...
These people are fully conscious getting a knife shoved up their nose to their brain?
Mm-hmm. Or their eyes scraped. Those are two of the most common.
Could you imagine being the first person? That'd be You're gonna do what?
and though we don't understand it, it has the ability to work on up to 9 different things in the body, And people often have powerful healings as a result of these interventions. And those are only two, but those are two of the more common. And of course, there's so much skepticism, especially people that are coming for the first time. And so often the Blessed Entity will look out in the crowd and know who the doctors are out there, know who the skeptics are, and he'll invite them to come up and help, to hold the instruments or where he washes his hands. And all these years, there's never been an infection. There's never been a death. Of course, there couldn't be, or he wouldn't be practicing still. And I've watched many of these, and the people just kind of just go. You can feel the energy. It gets really huge, and they just kind of go into a relaxed state, and they don't move while it's happening, and then they're down for a day or two or three, and it's
wow.
powerful. And the beautiful documentary I was telling you about earlier. Many of these actual surgeries are shown on some of the documentaries that have been done. But back to my lady with her husband in the wheelchair and the inoperable. So here I am on the first or second row with my friend, my best friend, Darlene, who is a nurse. And he comes out with her. And I, of course, am afraid of blood, but I'm... I just, yeah. And he sits her right there on the stage, and it takes a little, paring knife, and he just goes, and I don't know, because that's bone, I think, I think this is bone.
He goes in through the top of her head?
Yeah, he does, and I'm like from here to...
How? With no incisions or
with
anything?
With a little kitchen knife, And in fact, there's even a book written, one of the many books written about him is something like The Man with the Kitchen Knife, something like that. Yeah, he takes it, and I'm not that far away. I'm on the third row, and she's sitting there.
And this is your best friend?
No, my best friend's sitting next to me, but the lady who'd wheeled her chair, who brought her husband down for healing, and he says, we're working on him, but we're going to work on you. Surprise, surprise. And so she's there, and I'm looking, and he takes that knife and he pulls out. It must have been that big, out of her brain.
Tumor.
Yeah, right in front of me, in front of all of us, and plops it in a pickle jar. I mean, there's a whole room full of, tumors and yeah.
Wow.
And I know.
What?
And then and she just sits there. So fast forward, I'm coming home, I'm at the airport, and I look over, and who do I see but this lady with her husband, and she's got this light, she's just glowing, just radiates, and I just have to go over to her, because I was on the third row when I saw that, and I was on the third row and I saw that. I go, did you? She goes, no, I didn't know it was there, but I sure am glad he got it out.
Wow.
And I go, did you have any pain? And she says, honey, I didn't feel a thing. And
what did they do about patching up her head?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I think, now I can't remember how he did that one particularly, but I've watched enough that sometimes it looks like he just takes a little needle and some,
just sews it right back up?
Yeah. And but that one was very palpable to me because I was so close, and then I ran into the lady. She was a minister, from somewhere south, Georgia or Mississippi or but yeah, so he does many of those physical surgeries, and of course there's a lot of notoriety and publicity about that, because you try to do that up here and the person would die, and but mostly the blessed entities can do that same kind of work on people with what they call spiritual interventions. They don't need to do the physical, but some people just want the physical, they want to see the cut or whatever, but the same kind of work can be done spiritually, and I've had many spiritual interventions over the years. And my first one was the most powerful. I went down there the first time because I had horrible headaches. And when I went into the room where the spiritual intervention happens, I could feel my, whatever this organ is, I think it's your liver maybe, I don't know what's over here, being flipped. Like when I was pregnant, like when the baby would kick, only it was, I could feel it actually being flipped.
Really?
And I'd had horrible headaches for years and tried everything. And
that can't be good, yeah.
That's what led me down there. And yeah, and that was my experience of that first intervention. But yeah, people go there for help with all kinds of things, and inoperable brain tumors, spinal tumors, cancer, AIDS, you name it.
And it all gets healed.
Many people have physical healings.
Wow.
In my younger years there, I was very naive, and I thought that anybody would have anything, we didn't have to worry anymore. They just go see John of God, they'll be healed. What I've since learned is that when people go with an open heart and really want healing, they will receive healing. Often it will be on the physical plane, and often it will be miraculous. But sometimes it will not be on the physical. It will be on the spiritual or the mental or the emotional. Like my friend Arlene, she had stage 4 cancer, and she went down there once with me and then again 6 months later. And she actually died in a hospital when she was there. But what she said to me before she died was, I have been healed. And basically she meant that her heart, her soul had been healed, and that she came to know how loved she was and how loving God was. And so I think as humans we think healing, we're real focused on the physical. Of course, we're attached to life, our life here, but it's so much bigger than that, The Casa works from a spiritist framework, which is about the soul is constantly evolving. And we do it here in the earth plane, but we also do it, beyond the earth plane.
Right.
And while all of us are attached to having a physical healing, sometimes the greater healing, well, I think all the time the greater healing is what happens
internally.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So what would you say to any skeptics? What would you personally say?
Well, I have St. Ignatius's words on the back of my business card, because there are, of course, many skeptics, and this is something that can't, be rationally explained. And it's something to the effect of, he says, for those who believe, no words are needed. For those who don't believe, no words are possible.
Can you say that one more time?
Mm-hmm. I think I even got it on my card right here. I have to give you my...
And you said that book right there was the book that inspired you to go down there?
No, I found this book later. But this book is written by Heather Cumming, who is kind of a right-hand person to John of God. She does a lot of interpreting for him. She's an American, but she's, with him a lot. And it's called John of God, the Brazilian Healer Who's Touched the Lives of Millions. And there's been lots and lots of books written about John of God, and many, many good ones. But this is one of my favorite books. And I think the reason one of the reasons I like it so much is because it's got these beautiful pictures in it, like where John of God grew up. And then it's the only book where the sacred waterfall I was telling you about was allowed to be photographed. And like I shared with you earlier, in this photograph it took me, a long time before I saw it, but it's the Blessed Mother is right there present in the water. And it actually
took me a while to see it, but I saw it. I saw the hands.
And some of these pictures, you can see, the spiritual beings.
Wow, that is extremely vivid too.
Yeah, I have some photographs I've taken where stuff like this has shown up.
And who is that man right there?
That's Johnny God. This is when he was much younger. And here he is there. Yeah.
Like, those are very clear images.
Yeah. And this is someone, you can almost see, like I told you, the lady that had the brain tumor. It's almost like I don't know, I like see it with my spiritual eye rather than my physical eye, but it's almost like a haze. And you can kind of see it, like, I don't know, just the energy around him as he's preparing,
I like how in this picture he has Jesus's hair outlining. It looks like he has Jesus's hair.
Yeah, well, and right behind him is a picture of Jesus, So I don't think that's any. And then you can see kind of the gold light. Here I was telling you about the one surgery where he does the nose, and I actually said it was a knife, but I think it's a different instrument for the nose. I'm not exactly.
Looks like a long pair of tweezers.
Yeah, I think that's actually what it is. Let's see what it says. A 6-inch surgical Kelly clamp.
Kelly clamp.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Wow.
And it says the clamp had beforehand been wrapped in cotton and dipped in holy water. So, as the Kelly clamp is removed, one can see the energy radiating from the spiritual entity's head and hands. The Blessed Entities confirm that up to 9 different ailments can be addressed in this type of procedure. I don't know how well your viewers can see that, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's probably pretty difficult to see on the camera if I had to guess.
Yeah. But the book is pretty easy to get a hold of. Oh, this was his first trip to the States. I went there. That was in May of 2006. Oh no, April. And it was in Atlanta, Georgia. And then since then, he comes every year, every couple of years. He's come many, many times to a place called Omega in upstate New York. And it's that's a place where they do all kinds of spiritual workshops, and it's the most well attended of all that they offer up there.
Really?
They put up one of those great big tents to accommodate all the people, and I think there's like they can accommodate up to 2,000 people a day.
Wow.
And he comes into town. He usually comes in like every September or October for 3 or 4 days.
Does he only visit the U.S. or does he visit other countries as well?
He goes to different places. So I know he's been to Germany. He's been to Austria. Can't think where else he's been, but he is invited to other places.
Wow.
But there at the Casa, he's there every day, every week on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Those are his days when he sits and sees all the people that come from all over. And then he also is a rancher, gem miner, so like he doesn't charge for his work because he feels it's a gift from God, so he's supports himself, in other ways.
Yeah, removing that brain tumor would have been thousands of dollars too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
They did it completely free. I guess it's just the expense of getting down there if you're from the United States or something.
Yeah. And I think, some people go there, I think, because they're healers and and they want to learn and then they want to share that. And some people go because they live outside of the box and they want to see and then a lot of people go because maybe modern Western medicine or whatever hasn't had the answers for them.
They're out of options.
Yeah. And this is a place where there are more options.
I bet a fair amount of people go in as like a desperate attempt, and they might be maybe a little skeptic, but at the same time open-minded, like maybe this will work, and then they do get healed, possibly.
Yeah, I remember on one of these documentaries, there's just so many cool stories, but like this one person, he seems like he was awaiting some kind of surgery, and he had a friend that was at the Casa that went and asked for work to be done for him back, I guess it was here back in the States, and And then before the surgery happened, a surgery happened, but not by the doctors, and so he didn't have to have the surgery. And they came in and they were like, "Where have you been? Did you leave the hospital? Where did you go get the surgery?" And he goes, "I've been right here," you know. And then I remember another story where somebody went down and they had a spiritual intervention. So they had a surgery, but they call it spiritual intervention. So there was no cutting or anything, but it was done spiritually. And then they came back, and when they did the X-ray or whatever, they couldn't believe it because there were internal stitches.
What?
Yeah, there were internal stitches.
That he had done?
Well, that had been done in the spiritual intervention when they were at the Casa.
Is that even possible in modern science?
No.
Or modern medicine? Really?
No, I mean, how could... You'd have to have an incision to be able to do the stitches.
He did this without an incision?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And like... when
talk about a miracle.
When you go, when you go to read about John of God, I mean, you start to see all these books and all these videos and all this cool stuff, and and like I told you before, it's like I could write a book.
And you should. You should. You really should.
Because just the stuff I've seen, over the last 12, 13 years is pretty incredible. In fact, I actually went to a place that's no longer open anymore, but it's kind of a New Thought church years ago to see this man named Ron Rott. He had been a priest, and then he felt like his mission was bigger than just the Catholic Church, so he left the church as a priest, but in good standing. And he's continued to support people's growth. And I had a ministry called Celebration of Life out of some kind of near Chicago. Well, he went to the Casa, and there was a brotherhood connection between he and John of God.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, they were like spiritual brothers. And anyway, he came to St. Louis to talk about the power of the Holy Spirit and healing. And I'd had these horrible headaches, and I was like searching for anything to find an answer. And so I went to hear him talk, and on the break, I went out to the tables, and there was this book. And I looked down, and it was a book about John of God, and I didn't know who he was at the time. I just remember that his eyes just like almost felt like they came alive, and they just bored into mine, and I was like, I don't know who you are, but I'm getting this book, and I know you're the answer.
Wow.
And
it's like we were talking about before the podcast. Like, that's crazy how some things you just seek out. And do you believe that was the law of attraction at work? Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I believe it was an answer to my prayer. I think that when we really are searching and we ask God, for help, God answers us. Maybe not in a way we could even begin to imagine. I mean, that was in 2003, and my whole life, because of going to that, reading that book, then eventually going to Brazil, I met a whole many, many, many people who I love dearly, who I would never have ever known. I have been exposed to a whole world I never would have known. The first day I walked onto the Casa grounds, I felt like I was in a waking dream. It was because my energy was so dense and that energy was so high. I felt like I was almost in a dream. And now over the years I've, I don't feel so like this is one world, that's another, But I also, as I walked into the Casa, I realized I had been dreaming about that place, that I'd been there in my dreams for years and just never remembered it until I got there that day.
Wow.
And then I knew, this place, this is my special.
You were dreaming of this place that you had never physically been to.
And did not remember that I'd been dreaming about it.
So it was almost deja vu whenever you appeared there.
Uh-huh.
That would be one of the most surreal, I feel like once I walked up there, I just know I made the right decision.
Yeah.
Not that, I don't know if you had any doubts beforehand or anything like that.
Yeah, I was scared to death.
Really?
Get on a plane, fly to Brazil, see this guy who sticks things up his nose, and with nobody I knew. And then people thought I was crazy, really. Yeah.
Well, I admire that you took the risk. I think that's really cool.
Other than the birth of my 2 kids, it's the best thing I ever did in my life. Was, it's my spiritual home, and there are many healing modalities that are used there, and I feel like we talked about earlier, it's like there's so much pain and suffering in the world. People are, just look around, turn on the news. People are just acting out, they're going crazy. And the shadows coming, up, our inner shadow, and people are hurting, and they've lost their connection,
So what values do you think that Western society, Western culture could take away from John of God? What would you implement if you had the choice?
Well, he's so humble. His main words are, "It's not I, but God who heals," like I said before. So he always, he knows who our Maker is, and where all healing comes from, and basically I think the work that's done there, it's about letting go of all the stuff that makes us sick, which is lack of forgiveness, hatred, anger, rage, guilt, shame, all the crud we all carry around. And going to the Casa is about getting help, spiritual help, to begin to just let go of all that, and to remember your own divinity, remember who made you, and remember that you're loved. So to me,
it's a great reminder.
Yeah, the work of the Casa, John of God's mission, is to help people remember God and remember that you're God's child, and remember that you're loved, and that there's all this help, grace. To me that's a place of grace. It's like, yeah, we have to do our part. We have to show up. We have to try to be willing to let go of our junk. And then it's like the more we do our part, the more the blessed saints, blessed entities that work through John of God can do their part. It's like we have to take a step and open the door, which allows them to take a step toward us to do the, so we're working, hand in hand, so
kind of cohesively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's not like, we just sit there and they do all the work. No, we have to do our part.
Totally.
Which means like taking responsibility for our crud, and like our thoughts, cleaning up our thoughts.
So I guess on your end of the spectrum, it takes some humility, some to be humble enough to admit your faults.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think at least for me, it's like the lower your sense of self-worth, the more defended you are, against looking at your stuff, because you already unconsciously already feel so bad. Why admit you're bad, that you've done bad, but it's like that place is love, and you just start to feel it, and you start to see it, and once you know that you're loved, you can let go of your guilt and your shame
and your insecurities.
Yeah, and then you go, I'm not bad, I just made some bad choices, but I'm not bad, and when you begin to feel loved and you can let go of guilt and shame and know you're okay, then it's easier to take responsibility and make changes, and that's
not be defined by your wrongful actions.
Yeah, because we all mess up, it's a human condition, but we all can change. And we have tons of help, not just from the Casa. Maybe our world's in a pretty yucky place right now, but there's also a lot of wonderful things happening all around the planet with these spiritual teachers and really highly evolved people that are trying to help us, help ourselves. So I think there's hope, and I know these are kind of dark times, and I think it's times that have been prophesied, and I think so many of us are working on hard emotional stuff inside, and I guess I would want to say, don't give up hope. This too shall pass, and just ask God for help, and God will bring the help, maybe in ways you never even thought of. Just ask. We're all in this together.
Absolutely. And you also had met the Dalai Lama at one point as well, right?
Yeah, it's another really wonderful,
But
evolved
did you meet him
soul.
just once, or did you meet him multiple times?
I didn't meet him personally, but I went to events, where I was.
Oh, wow, okay.
So again, didn't get to be right next to him like John of God, that, but maybe set 5 or 10 rows back when he was doing a wonderful practice, and a lot of the Tibetan monks were there too, and I believe like anytime you come around a master teacher, like somebody who's very evolved spiritually, like the Dalai Lama, or John of God, or like somebody like a saint. And there are like Amma, the hugging saint, a woman hugging saint, Bratso, a Croatian that has the gift of gaze. These beings are so evolved, and they're so selfless, and there's no ego, and they're just pure, God just purely coming through them, and they're all about helping humanity.
Just pure altruism, pure love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no ego. They totally just surrendered to the light and love of God, and that's the word I use. Somebody else might use another word, source. There's all different kinds of words for God and all different kinds of traditions, So, but I think what they all have in common is that they just have let go of their ego, their human self, and just open their self to let the divine, that love, come through them to help others.
Absolutely.
And when you come into the sphere of somebody like that, I think you're lifted up just because their vibration's so high. It's like just being in their presence elevates you. And
I totally believe that. I think people have a lot of influence over you, like who you surround yourself with, and people that are going to be at that higher state of consciousness, it's contagious in a very positive way. So I can totally understand that. I think human beings are extremely receptive to each other and who we like emotionalize with. So if you were to just be in the presence of somebody like the John of God or the Dalai Lama, like I couldn't even imagine being in like the presence of somebody like that.
Yeah. It's like I think they impact you even more with their energy, than they do with their words. And John of God doesn't speak English, so I wouldn't know what he was teaching me, even if he was teaching me with words. But it's nonverbal communication, I think, is 70-80% of our communication.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know the exact stat, but it's like, it's these high beings, they vibrate, and we're elevated, Yeah.
I think it's really cool how, especially with the impact of the internet, I think it's really interesting how somebody who doesn't speak our language can have such a massive impact on your life. That's really interesting. This is not even a comparison to John of God, but like Lionel Messi, like he's just through his actions, and if I wanted to sit down and have a face-to-face conversation with him, he's the greatest soccer player in my opinion to ever live, and he's had an impact on my life, and just watching him play, it's so beautiful to me, but we couldn't even communicate if we wanted to. We need a translator, we need a third party there.
Yeah, but like we were talking earlier, also Swamiji, another great being in India.
What was the name again? Swamiji?
Yeah, that's his nickname. It's a very long name, and I don't want to say it because I'm afraid I'll mess it up. I think it's like something like Paramahansa Yogananda. I'm not sure, but I call him Swamiji. And he's in India, and he has a huge following, and he's a master teacher too. But he talks about, the people will listen to your words, but what changes them is your behavior. You know, it's your actions, like, you know, how are you, and so I think like that kind of fits what you're saying about the soccer player too. It's like we're constantly teaching people, and yeah, maybe we teach with our words, but like we teach also with how we're living, you know, and like so he's been, you know, we would know a word that he said, it sounds like, but he's taught you, he's impacted you with his life and how he's lived it, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, would you like to talk about the crystal bed?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So, at the Casa, of course, there's many ways that people receive healings. You know, spiritual interventions, setting in the current room, which is a room where people meditate together, going to the sacred waterfall, drinking water that's been blessed by the blessed entities, and then the crystal bed. And the crystal bed looks like a piece of medical equipment, you know.
Kind of does, now you say that.
Yeah. And so it stands and it has these arms, and on the end of each arm is a vocal cut crystal. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that line up over your chakras, your energy centers in your body. And I flip a little switch, and light of different colors that are correlated with the colors of your chakras shines through. So
really? I didn't know that was why they had different colors.
Yeah. So there are different colors correlated with the energy centers in our body. And so when you're the crystal bed, it sounds kind of misleading. It's not really a bed. You lay on a massage table with the crystals over you, and they do an alternating pattern, you know, of the colored lights with your energy centers, which cleanses and clears and aligns your energy center. And when your chakras are clean and clear and moving in the right way, it affects also your physical body, you know. So working with the crystals, you know, can help you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And probably the greatest gift, like I shared with you earlier, of the crystal bed is the spiritual part of it, because I'm a daughter of the Casa, which means that I have aligned my life mission with John of God's mission. So I totally believe in what he's doing for the world and the way that he's doing it. And I also want to share about his work, so that if people feel called to go see him, you know, they can. And then many of us all around the world have been given permission to bring crystal beds back to our locale, because when you're under the crystals, I feel like it's kind of like a little stargate. It's like I can talk about the Casa, but to try to really explain an experience that can't be explained with words, you know, it's very limiting. But when you're under the crystals, you actually have an experience, or you can, and that's individual for each person. And even with the same person, if they do the crystal bed many different times, each experience can be different. But to me, the power of a crystal bed session is that all those blessed beings that are connected with John of God and his mission, that love us so much, they're trying to help us evolve here, and clear off whatever we need to clear off so we can remember who we are. All those beings love all of us. And when you say, okay, yeah, I want to connect in, you know, and choose to do a crystal bed session, many times you're going to feel the presence of those beings, you know, and they're helping you, because you free will have said yes, you know. They don't interfere with free will. But
so you have to accept it.
Yeah, you have to say, yes, I would like the help of this particular collective bunch, you know. You know, and because they follow God's laws, they're not going to interfere with our free will, you know. If you say yes, then they'll work with you with whatever it is that your soul is most needing, and you may or may not be conscious of that. But they work for your highest good in alignment with the will of God, you know. And so sometimes people have mystical experiences. You know, mystical. Sometimes people go into deep sleep. Sometimes people have huge releases. They may remember something that happened back in childhood that they hadn't resolved that comes up. And sometimes people feel they're visited by those they've lost, and they feel like they're right there, and they have a communication. Those that have died and passed on, I've had that experience. Sometimes people feel Jesus, you know.
Wow.
Sometimes people actually feel like someone's at their feet, or brushing their cheek, or being lifted up. It's very powerful. And sometimes after a session, people will go home and they'll sleep for 12 hours or 24 hours.
Wow.
You know, so I say to people, I say, before anybody does a crystal bed treatment, I always have a talk with them, you know, so they understand John of God, where the crystal bed comes from, the power of the session, and that there's no coincidence who comes to the crystals. It's people who, you know, really are serious about wanting to do some healing or shift or change, you know, and I let them know it could be a very powerful thing, you know. So usually I tell people if they're going to come during the day, don't go back to work that day, you know, or don't plan a big night out, you know. Have a very quiet time, because I cannot predict. Sometimes people will leave and they'll feel energized and happy, and some of their pain will be gone. Sometimes people will be so tired they can hardly wait to get home and get to bed. And I can never predict, because it's not up to me, it's up to God.
Right.
You know, and that person's soul about what is going to happen, you know, in that session.
It's all in the realm of possibilities. Wow.
Yeah, power.
So how long is like a typical healing session?
Well, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so...
Hey, what?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so, like, different people with crystal beds do their sessions different ways. Each of us do it according to how we're led. For me, like, when I do a session, I sit with a person for a while, you know, and kind of do a little counseling or mentoring, maybe, just to kind of, well, make sure they understand what they're saying yes to. And then also just to see if they have something that they want to identify, that they want to work on, you know. And then generally they'll get under the crystals, and I will go and sit in the room and pray my rosary, you know, while they're under the crystals. And it could be 20 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 40 minutes. Usually it's somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes for the first time. And generally I think the average is about 40 minutes. For people who are real used to the energy, because I have some people that come regularly, because it's a spiritual path for them, they may do a whole hour. But I'd say probably more common is you're under the crystals anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I would love to try it sometime.
I would like for you to, Jordan.
That'd be really interesting.
I would like for you to. It's it's a great gift, you know, the crystals, and to have it here in my home, you know, for the past 11 years.
You said only 3 in St. Louis now?
There was one woman who had one here, but then I think she moved to Israel with hers. I know there was another woman, and then I have one, and then a friend of mine. So if there are more than 3 here in St. Louis, I'm not aware. There could be, because John of God's becoming much more well-known, you know. I know there's a couple in Cape Girardeau, but they're all over the world now, you know. And in fact, if anybody is watching this that lives in another state and has an interest in a crystal bed session, you would go to Abajania Portal, and that's ABADIANIA Portal. And that a friend of mine who's the director of the Casa, he has a website, and it has many things about the Casa on there. Oh, that's my little cat, Honey. Say hi. It also has a section crystal beds, and then you can put in your state, and it will show you who has where the crystal beds are in your particular state. So
very cool.
Yeah. That's a cool portal for you to take a look at too.
I think you told me before that they're more popular on the East Coast and West Coast, right?
I think there's a lot more crystal beds on the East and West Coast. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder why that. I guess it's not as common in the Midwest for whatever reason, or.
Yeah. I'm not sure why that would be. I don't know. Maybe they're just a little more, outside of the box, less conservative. I don't know. And maybe that will change too. So, but I know there are a lot in California.
I could see that. Probably just the correlation between how many people meditate, and because I know meditation seems to be a lot more common over in Cali. So
yeah, a lot of hippies.
Yeah. So when you describe the entities, what do you mean by entities, or how would you describe them? If you, I would imagine that they're indescribable.
Yeah. Well, entity. Is a spiritual being, being that's not in physical form, and entities, I think, maybe a word used more in Portugal. It may have a bit of a negative connotation up here, but it's, I've shifted through that. It's just a spiritual being, and so there are many different entities that incorporate in John of God. They're all masculine. He doesn't incorporate any feminine entities. And some of them were saints in their day, like Saint Ignatius, Saint Xavier, Saint Francis of Assisi. Many of them were doctors, in their time, with different specialties. And and in addition to all those blessed entities who incorporate through John of God, there are hundreds of thousands of other spiritual beings that are also assisting that may not necessarily incorporate. And so, like when someone is walking in front of the entity, the minute they walk into the room, like there may be someone right in front of him, but at the same time, because there's all this help, the one that's walking in back there, they know immediately what all's going. They can see their whole Akashic record, like everything that's been going on with them in the past, what their soul's lessons are, how it's manifesting physically, their karma, all that, and how they can best intervene, and which entity, might need to work through John of God to help them.
Right.
And so, so sometimes people, come up and it's their first time, and the entity just waves them on, and they're like, oh, what am I? Well, they don't realize it's like, because the one that's incorporated at that moment isn't the one and they'll say, come back at 2:00, because they'll know a different entity will be then. That's the one that will be there to help. But if you're new, you don't understand all this stuff.
Right.
So, but they
don't take it personally.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And plus, everybody thinks, oh, you got to go in front of John of God. You got to go in front of John of God. But the thing is, there's so many blessed entities working. They're working with you all the time. They're all around, not just, working, in John of God. I on one documentary, this guy's walking down the street, and all of a sudden, there's this incision happening across his chest, and stuff like that, And he wasn't standing in front of John of God, and he wasn't in the intervention room.
Could he feel it?
Yeah, he could see it. He saw the blood coming through his. He had an intervention.
Wow.
And sometimes people have interventions. On the plane on the way down there, or sometimes, for example, my first. I went and saw Ron Roth. Saw the book, got the book. Waited a year, was on Ron Roth's newsletter. He sent out, my guides are Bob Dinga and Diana Rose, who have been taking trips down there for over 15 years. And they're my godparents now. Well, I finally, after a year after seeing Ron Roth, decided to give him a call. And talked with Bob, and who was my tour guide. He and Diana took me down the first time in 2005, and then again in 2006, and have nurtured me and nourished me spiritually ever since then. The greatest people in the world, and very, very well known at the Casa in California, for anybody who might be watching that's in California. But Bob had a retina disease that nothing could be done for. He did everything. Nothing could be done. At finally got to the point. And he heard about John of God. And long story short, was healed of his retina, the issue, through going to the Casa.
So he was unable to see before that?
He had a rare disease of the retina, and he was going blind.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And he went down there the first time and did not follow the directions. And there are very specific directions. It's very serious. Even if the intervention is spiritual, it's like having a physical. But a lot of people don't understand that because what you can't see, so he'll tell you he didn't follow the directions, and he went sightseeing and everything else when you're supposed to lay down with your eyes closed for 24 hours after surgery. Well, after he went travel in the countryside and he didn't feel good. When he went home, his eyesight got worse, and it's a beautiful story. But he eventually found his way back, and had to stay and go back many times, and was transformed not only physically but spiritually, and received his sight back over time, and through that experience became very connected with the Casa. And now he and Diana have taken hundreds, probably thousands of people to the Casa over the last 15, close to 20 years.
Wow.
It changed his life.
Like taking them there personally, or just directed them in that direction?
No, taking them. Some of us, they're really connected. We may choose to bring back the crystal bed, and that's how we can share, that energy and that healing with people right in our locale. But some of us also choose to take people there to the Casa for their for healing on whatever level. And Bob and Diana, that is their total mission. I do also. I'm a mother, and I do hospice social work, and that's my job. But I also, on occasion, take people to the Casa. But Bob and Diana take people there 4 times a year. And there are many people all around the planet that are doing that, And then there are some of us that might go once a year or every other year and take people. And not everybody wants to go to the Casa or needs to go to the Casa, but wants to experience that energy, so they might do it through the crystal bed. Or some people choose to send their photo, and when your photo is presented in front of the entity, it's just like you being there. And that's how I went the first time. And about 30% of the people may get an X, which means you really need to come, which is what happened to me. And I don't know how I kind of went off on a little, but back to, I called Bob, and he was telling me about the Casa, and I'm like, well, send me a video about that. And I think I'm going, and he's like, well, we can take your picture. I'm like, okay, well, I'll send you my picture. You take my picture down. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get that X, which I did. But in the meantime, send me a video. So I watched the video, and it's John of God doing those surgeries, and I'm like, ooh, because the energy, it's more than it's the energy. Ooh, the stuff that's being released. And I was like, oh, it was intense. And he was looking at me out of that TV, when I was watching it. And it was a call, little did I know. I went to bed that night. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was above my body. I was looking down at my body. There was a ring of beings with me. And all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, you're those ones, aren't you? You're those ones that work with John of God. And you're working on me,
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, but I'm up here, and it just freaked me out.
You had an out-of-body experience.
I did.
With the entities around you.
Yeah, that was my first, and it freaked me out. And I slammed back down into my body, and I felt like I weighed 1,000 pounds. I felt so heavy when I came back in.
Why? Because you felt so light out of your body?
I guess. It was like coming back in, and I'm like, I cried for 3 days, nonstop. And I think it was because something that they helped release emotionally, but also like being not in your body and then coming back into your body was hard. You know, I don't know that it would be the same as like a near-death experience, but it was really hard to come back, you know, into, it was just so physical. It just weighed so much.
Right,
you know?
right. So restraining probably.
Yeah.
Well, I bet it was like the out-of-body experience. I bet that was extremely like liberating for you.
If I hadn't, it was initially, if I hadn't then gotten freaked out, you know, in the beginning, I'm like, oh, wow, and you must be those beings, and oh, and you've been helping me out. And then I look down, I'm like, oh, there I am. I'm like, oh, you know, and I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm out of my body, does that mean I'm gonna, you know, and then I slammed back in, you know, and yeah, and that was my first like real, you know, and then the next day I'm like, oh, I know I'm getting that X. And sure enough, you know, when Bob and Diana came back, they sent me my photo back, and I was like, well, you got the X, come on down to the Casa.
There you go, there you go.
And I, you know, that was in October of 2004 that happened, and then I got to the Casa for the first time in August of 2005.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much a sign from God at that point. That's crazy.
Well, and the thing is, it sounds maybe kind of extraordinary, but really, everybody has those experiences. Like, I mean, their own. I mean, because miracles are for everybody, and
right.
the Casa is for everybody, and God wants to help us all. And somebody once said, when you go to the Casa, don't take a thimble. Mm-hmm. You know, open
like
up to
somebody's getting back home,
to everything that, you know, is there. You know, take a dump truck to fill yourself up with the blessings and the miracles.
Right.
So, oh, yep, we got.
Hello.
Hi, girls. We're still doing our podcast here. So, yeah. So yeah, everybody has those experiences. You know, they look different. Everybody has their own story or stories to tell. But I mean, you know, God's miracles they're not limited. You know,
not limited just you or just that person. They're everybody.
Yeah, and not just one. You know, I mean, I think that's the nature of God, is constantly giving and giving beyond our wildest, you know, dreams or expectations, because the love is like infinite, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess some people choose to reject those as well.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're just not ready, or maybe they're so wounded that they're just scared, you know.
I could see that, being afraid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, pretty wild stuff.
Some people are afraid of the unknown, the unexplained. Makes sense.
Well, and maybe that's not everybody's path, you know. I mean, and God's so vast that, you know, there's so many different paths. So, like, you know, this path is for some people, you know.
Right.
And there may be other paths that are for other people, and, like, God's handling it all, so.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
It is the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, you said that you felt, and this is in the pamphlet or the article that you sent me beforehand.
Oh, huh?
You said that you felt as if you were on a higher dimensional frequency when walking through Casa gates. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that exactly? Just the energy, the vibe of being there, and the presence of the Casa gates?
Yeah, I guess that's a house of love, you know, and so it's kind of like I told you when I first walked in, I realized I'd been dreaming about the place for years and hadn't really, and I felt like I was in a waking dream, you know. I guess it's because, like, what happens at the Casa through grace is like all the emotions that keep us in lower frequency, like hurt and sadness and anger and guilt and shame, whatever, it is that we carry around. We, as humans, carry a lot of stuff around. It starts to get released, and what's left then is our true nature, which is love. And so when you aren't carrying as much dense energy or all these lower emotions, then you begin to vibrate at a higher frequency. You begin to feel more buoyant, more light, more joyful, more free.
That only makes sense too. That makes so much sense.
And that's the Casa. The Casa's about letting you release, dump all your garbage, let it go, and be who you really are, Jesus says, you can do this and greater than I. That's our birthright, is to walk that way, live that way. Live, and I think we're headed that way, all of us, and so to me, that it's like, it's just higher, it's just faster, it's a higher frequency, that place,
Just letting go of all that emotional baggage, all that jealousy, all that hatred, superstition.
Yeah, all that keeps you from peace, Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the weird thing is, I notice people start to look younger.
Really?
And it occurred to me, well, what is it that ages us? What is disease? Dis-ease. I think what ages us is all that,
All the negative emotions?
It begins to show up in our faces and in our bodies.
Absolutely.
And so when you begin to let go of holding on to money or people or whatever you're dependent on, or you begin to let go of that anger, maybe it leaves your face, and it's like when you start to walk like in joy and love, people just start looking younger. At least that was my observation.
That's so true. That's so true.
And like the first time I went, I had 3 surgeries, 3 interventions. That's the most I ever had in one time. Well, until this last one. I was baptized at the Casa this past summer, which meant fuller alignment even. But these interventions, they really clear stuff. And then it's like people glow. It's almost like, well, what are we really? We're light, and what is it that covers our light? Our crud.
And by light, you mean love?
Like we're light. That's the substance that we're made of, is light, light. And so when you clear off garbage, all that's not light, it
allows it to shine through.
Yeah, and people people glow. I think it's like you can think of people in your life, the ones that kind of glow.
Absolutely. And on the other end of the spectrum, you see the people that, have you ever heard the expression like a resting bitch face? Like where somebody, they just naturally have like a mean looking face where you can tell they've allowed a lot of negativity, a lot of negative energy to kind of consume their being.
Yeah. I had not heard that, but yeah, wow. Because I think we wear our thoughts in our bodies, Yeah, and not only conscious, maybe of the subconscious and the unconscious thoughts too, And
yeah, true.
Yeah, that we don't even know. We don't even know what we don't know until we know it.
The interior projects itself onto the exterior.
Yeah, and the answer to it all is love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all could need a little bit more of that. This world could need a little bit more love.
Yeah.
Just like you were saying, like people like John of God and the Dalai Lama that are going to project their love out to the world, like in a very heightened state of consciousness type of way. I think, like we were talking about before the podcast, I think it's really cool how the internet gives us this outlet, this opportunity to reach a mass number of people that we've never been able to reach before. And I think at the end of the day, love is what's going to shine through, and that's the information that people are going to start to absorb more of is just more of a loving culture, because it feels good, and I think it's going to be contagious, and it's just going to grow exponentially.
Yeah, like the 100th monkey.
The 100th monk? I've never heard of that
100th
before.
100th monkey. Yeah.
Monkey, okay.
Yeah,
I was thinking monk.
Yeah.
It's a monkey.
The 100th monk, that'd be cool too, though. Yeah. I think I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. And well, like, you know, you mentioned John of God and the Dalai Lama, and like Mother Teresa, you know, like you can just feel who they are when you're around them, or you see them, or you can just feel like their consciousness is just like it. They don't even have to use words. Who they are, what they stand for, what they're. It just speaks louder than words.
The power of presence.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you were saying earlier, like we all know that person that maybe they're extremely gregarious, charismatic, that whenever they walk into the room, their optimism, their positive energy just shines through, and it's so contagious. It's so we're just so receptive to that. It kind of just changes the energy of the room as a whole.
Yeah, I remember way back when somebody said something about Jesus' aura, you know, his energy field, like it extended, I don't know, miles.
Oh, I bet.
You know, because to me, he is the greatest person who's ever walked on our, you know, planet. So can you imagine what being in that field would have been like?
Oh,
you know,
it's unimaginable. It really is.
Yeah.
I bet you could do a better job than I could at imagining it.
Oh no! I think
being in the presence of the Dalai Lama, of John of God, like, I'm sure that's only a fraction of Jesus's, but
yeah. Which that reminds me, I want to show the face of this one other person too. I know we're mostly focusing on John of God, but
yeah, absolutely. Is it the bottom one?
Yeah, this is Braco. He's also a world-renowned healer, Braco, and his gift is his presence, which he offers through his gaze.
Here, I'll hold both of these books up close if you don't mind. Here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hey, you can continue talking.
So that's my favorite book about John of God, which you can get just
right
you
here.
know, I'm sure off of Amazon, lots of, and then this is a picture of Braco. He's from Croatia, and he also has been world renowned. He's a little younger. I think he's, I don't know, probably in his 40s. And through his gift, just like with John of God, through his gift, people are, what are you doing, honey? People, you know, experience transformation physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because
you were saying before the podcast, you were saying that that he has these live streams through.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things I love about Amara. Excuse me, I'm gonna have my daughter come and get my gregarious cat. Can you come and get Honey, please? Yeah. I'm going to take my kitty cat to my daughter. Come here. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Would you just take your chair? Yeah, because she's just kind of going a little bit.
And how do you
Let's see. What was? Oh yeah. So Braco. So you can find out about Braco by going to braco-tv.me, and in the last few years, like usually 3 days a month, he live streams from Croatia, and what they have learned is that it's just as powerful, his gift, through the live stream as it is in person. And in fact, people have just instantaneous physical healings too with him.
Wow.
It's just and the really interesting thing is I've gone to see Braco in New York and in California a few times over the last 7-8 years, and I'll go to a Braco event and I'll see people wearing the triangle, which is John of God's symbol, which signifies love, service, and truth. And then I'll go down to the Casa, and I'll see people wearing Brazzo symbol, which is the sun, which is the giving. The sun is eternally giving, and that's Brazzo symbol. So both these healers tend to draw the same crowd, similar consciousness.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's just another person that I really feel is doing a wonderful work for the planet. And in fact, the United Nations honored him with a little peace pole a few years ago, which is a great honor for the work that he's doing for the planet.
That's really cool that they're going to recognize that and the work that he's doing as well.
Yeah.
Especially somebody as big as or not somebody, but the United Nations. That's huge.
Yeah, he came and gazed for them.
Really?
So, yeah.
I would like to see that, because especially if you think about it from a skeptic point of view, that's crazy that somebody can just gaze into a camera basically, and I mean, what did they say? The eyes are like the portal to the spirit or something regarding that, and that it's just that powerful that people will actually watch it. I would love to observe. Yeah.
Well, you can. This coming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this month in January, you just go to the brazzo-tv.me, and usually in our time zone, I think it starts either at 10 or 11. So from the top of the hour, from 10 to about 10:20, they'll have different speakers, like psychiatrists, doctors, just different people that come and speak and give wonderful spiritual knowledge, high vibration people. And then sometimes they'll have people who've had healing speak. They'll show a video. There's been many movies made about him, just like John of God. And then he comes out and gazes, and he doesn't align himself with any religious ideology. He doesn't try to explain. He just offers his love, his gift. And he says, I just come to ignite the flame in you that's also in you. So he's already ignited, he to me, he's, just enlightened being, and he just wants that for all of us, which is our birthright, and just like we were talking before, these high masters, they have a certain consciousness in just their field, and in this case, the gaze, and I think it activates our own growth, and we all have the potential, to be just, I believe,
to be at that state of consciousness.
Yes, I believe we all have that.
Now, so you're kind of saying there's nothing exclusive, there's nothing special about. Obviously, they're special, but anybody can do it.
Yeah,
wow.
We're all children of God, so none of us are any more special than anybody else. We're all equally special. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like the way you phrased that at the end.
Yeah.
So, you stated that the religion of Casa was love, like a universal religion. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that our purest form of consciousness is also love? Mm-hmm. I believe so as well.
Yeah. And some of the other high what's the word I'm looking for? Well, gratitude. That's something that really can lift your consciousness, is practicing a state of gratitude, and appreciation. Right now I'm reading a book for the second time by a lady named Catherine Ponder. I think she wrote this book in the 60s. She was, I think, maybe connected with the Unity movement. But she's written a lot of books, but this book's called The Prospering Power of Love, and she just talks about love, and our affirmations. It can change any situation, and she gives hundreds of examples of people who use these principles that she was teaching effectively, to change their relationships, to change their yucky job situations, to change their money situation, just affirming the good and affirming God's love and affirming the prospering power of love. So, yeah, I do think, love is love, peace, gratitude, those are all, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And on that note, I think that, like you said, I think practicing gratitude, that's to be noted that it's a skill. It's a skill that needs to be implemented and practiced frequently, because I've realized that you can get better. You can be better at appreciating what you have in your life. Mm-hmm. Like as natural as it should come to us, it's something that you have to improve upon. You have to keep growing at. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain power that comes with that.
Yeah, like a snowball. Because it's not, I don't think it's the status quo. It's not what we've been taught,
especially in Western culture. I mean, a lot of capitalism, a lot of consumer-based societies are going to be reliant on you not being completely satisfied, completely content with what's in your life.
Yeah. And so there's always that, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we have a very insatiable culture.
Yeah. Always looking out there.
Totally.
But home's here.
True. Within.
Yeah, Jesus said it. Yeah, the kingdom of heaven is within. So.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss?
I guess just to say, if people would have any interest in this, I would love for them to be able to contact me. If they would want more information about John of God, if they would want information about crystal beds, where they could find them if they're not here in this state, if they would want information about how to go to the Casa, or if they wanted to send their photo to the Casa, is that something like I could give information about that?
You could give it verbally right now, and what I can also do for you is put it in the description on any platform that I'm going to release this out on.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I can put it in the description, like follow, and whatever your choice, like email, if you have any social media you'd like them to contact you on, anything.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of in the dark ages with social media. I'm probably the only one on the planet that doesn't Facebook yet, and I don't have a website, but that's something I want to get to. But I do have an email, and I do have a phone. And I guess the one other thing, I do have one more thing I would like to share about the herbs. So,
absolutely,
of course, not everybody can go to the Casa, but a lot of people want to experience maybe the crystal bed, but they also would like to have their photo go, and
what do you mean by photo go?
Like a lot of times when I go to the Casa, not only do I take people physically with me, but I might take 10 or 15 photos of people also that are not going, but I take their photo, and then I go in front of the Blessed Entity with these photos. And that's the way I went the first time with Bob and Diana. Was my photo went down, and then I got the X,
really? Okay.
And so the Blessed Entity, in your photo, you're dressed all in white, because that's the best way for the entities to be able to read your field.
Purest form.
Because they see you as a holographic image, And so they scan, they see what's needed, and then they bless these herbs, which you take for about 6-7 weeks. One in the morning, one in the night.
To kind of cleanse you internally?
Well, when they scan the photo, then the blessing and energy dispensation is placed into the herbs, and so it's only for you. It wouldn't affect anybody else. And I've had when my photo first went down, I was having issues with the head. This was why I eventually went down.
With headaches?
Severe headaches. But when I got on the herbs that Bob and Diana brought back for me that first time, I had issues with my knees and different other things going on that I didn't even think to ask about, which went away.
Whenever you start taking the herbs.
Yeah, my pain in my knees.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, don't take a thimble, take a... and so, like, when you take the herbs, though, you have to follow dietary protocols. So, while you're on the herbs, nothing hot or spicy, and no alcohol, and no fertilized eggs, which most eggs aren't, but it's like a farmer's eggs, like if you see the little red dot in that means it's been fertilized. So it's a pretty easy
Really?
protocol.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So it's pretty easy. Well, for some people, easy protocol. For others, now if it had been chocolate or coffee I had to give up, that would have been and so they're working. It's an energy modality, just like the crystal bed, just like the blessed water. What does that mean,
energy modality?
It's working energy imbued, just like when you're under the crystals, it's working with you energetically, working with your energy centers, your chakras. When you're drinking the blessed water, it's working with your energy, your emotions, your thought. When you're taking the herbs, just all different ways that the blessed energies work. And so I often bring back people that may not ever go to the Casa, but they their picture goes and they get on the herbs. And some people have some pretty, miraculous experiences with the herbs too. So another book. I'm trying to think if there's anyone's story. Yes, one lady, we sent her photo down. I think it was with Bob and Diana, and she had fractured her knee, I think it was, and it was going to be a very long 6-month, I think, healing, 3-month, 4-month, 5, 6 long healing process. She got the herbs, started taking them. Immediately, just got so tired, she just basically had to lay down on the couch for 3 days. She began to feel the presence of someone with her working on her knee and lots of other things, and giving her lots of information. And so she finally said, well, who are you, and was told St. Ignatius. And long story short, she went back for a checkup, and the doctor's like, what did you do?
No way. Completely cured or
I think,
partially cured?
We're going back 2 or 3 years, but I can't remember. I think, I don't know.
Wow.
I'm not going to say it was completely, totally, but if it wasn't completely, totally, it was way speeded up, to amaze the doctor. And she never went to the Casa, never got, didn't do the crystal. It was just this, So they work. I mean, they're not limited. They just were covered. They work with us,
Right.
Yeah. So, because they want to help us, So.
That's interesting. So, are there any almost euphoric effects, or is it just?
Actually, I'll show you. So inside the capsule it's Passiflora, which is Passion of Christ, herb, and it has.
And to be clear, these specified to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's got Passiflora in this capsule, and you take one in the morning, one in the night. The Passiflora is the carrier, but the real power of it is the blessing. When the entity sees your picture and blesses the herbs for you. So each bottle of herbs is specific for,
the user.
That's right.
Wow.
Because of and but the Passiflora itself, flower of Passiflora, passion flower, which it's connected with Jesus. It has maybe just a slight calming effect, if there's any kind of, it has, and sometimes when people first take the herbs, just like when they first do the crystal bed, they can feel real sleepy, but that's not really the herb, that's the blessing. Yeah. So often one of the effects of when the entities are really working with you is you just feel real tired for a few days. So, but that's a good thing, So.
Yeah, apparently, if you're gonna pass out for 3 days, and
yeah, there you go, yeah. So, so I think thank you. I think I've shared a lot about things that are important to me and good work that's going on. around the world, and maybe, you know, some people will, I guess just mostly from my heart, I would just say, oh my gosh, you know, I've been through some of my own dark times. Like the Blessed Entities, they don't only just work with us physically, but they work with us emotionally. And I've struggled many years with depression, anxiety, and the Blessed Entities have really, really helped me with that. And I guess they just have a message of hope. So if any of you are ever watching, you know, this at some point, if you feel like you're in a dark place where there's, you know, no way out, know that there is. There's always a way out. And all you have to do is ask God, and God will help you, and He'll make the way out known, whether it's through a friend or a stranger or a John of God, or there's always a way, you know. So no matter how dark it seems, don't ever lose hope. And even when you don't feel like there's hope, or you don't feel like you're loved, know that, I just want you to know that you are. Like that footprints in the sand. That's when you're being carried, when you feel maybe most alone. And to know that you're not the only one that goes through that. There are many, many, many people, especially right now, that are going through that. So always have hope.
That was a good send-off.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
That'll always, any dark times will pass. It can only be temporary.
Yeah.
Nothing's permanent.
That's right. This too shall pass. The only thing constant is change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Only constant. I like that. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, if you guys made it this far, I really appreciate your time. I'll put those links in the bio. Just send me anything that you'd like to be put in the bio. I guess your email.
Okay.
You said your phone, but I would not recommend putting your phone.
Okay. All right. Well, I take your recommendation seriously.
Some weird people out there.
Okay, yeah, my email is Shirl, SHIRL 30 at att.net. And eventually I hope to have a website up and running too. So.
Awesome. Very cool.
Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. See you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.